Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by the beautiful and so amazing Patricia Tallman. Patricia, how are you doing today?
Oh my gosh, I'm fine. Thank you so much. You're being very sweet to me. I appreciate it.
Oh, no
You're
problem.
doing
I'm
great.
so excited to have you here. And I want to tell you guys, for those of you that don't know, been living under a rock for a while. She's a well-known actress for her roles in Night of the Living Dead, Babylon 5, Star Trek, and Dead Air. But she's also performed stunts on movies that have been so huge in all of our lives, such as Creepshow 2, Army of Darkness, Jurassic Park, these movies that have shaped our lives. So it's amazing to have you here. But that's just the acting part of Patricia. Now, I want to talk before we get into this about something even better. She's also very active in Penny Lane, a center for abused children in California. If you guys are interested in that, I have the links to that down here in the description. Everything helps when you're helping out children. The littlest thing to us is the biggest deal to them. So you
Right.
can't, like I said, anything that you can do to help, the links are down here in the description. And even though COVID's kind of kicked it a little bit, she also leads Quest Retreats, a VIP adventure excursion company with annual events in Hawaii, London, New Zealand, and South Africa. So before we get into all of this, what can you tell us a little bit about Penny Lane?
Penny Lane, like you said, is a home for kids. The kids, they're dealing with thousands of kids now. They've grown massively over the past couple decades. I've been involved with them, and I kind of handle kids that have been through so much they can't be placed in regular foster care. So what I see Penny Lane as is kind of the last stop before juvie, before lockup, right? So that it's a really intense, an amazing place. It's gone through a lot of metamorphosis since I've been involved with them because of the different administrations, money disappearing, beds disappearing. We've used to have 120 kids. I think I have 50 right now. That's all the room they've got for them. But like I said, Penny Lane serves thousands of kids and families in a lot of different ways. But the children that I'm dealing with are from the ages of 12 to 18. So, they're also, because of what they've been through, they're either massively already adults or they're really behind,
Sure.
and a lot of it is undiagnosed X, Y, or Z,
Mm-hmm.
because they've been either ignored or abused. And they're kids of all colors, by the way. This is it's amazing to me just how rampant this I don't know what you want to say, just a neglect, abuse,
And that's what I say, familial abuse, familial
yeah,
neglect.
yeah,
That doesn't
physical,
have a skin
sexual,
color.
emotional abuse. The parents are involved in lawsuits, and so they can't be around, so the kids are placed in social services, like other family members won't take them, or there's all kinds of levels of issues going on here. And so Penny Lane is this kind of amazing place where these angels work with these kids to keep them safe, to help give them a sense of hope, to help shape their lives. Like you were talking about movies shaping your life, they're trying to give them a chance to have another viewpoint other than
Sure.
what they've been exposed to. So what I feel like our little program is, I run something called Be a Santa, and it all started because as part of the Star Trek stunt team, we would do stunt demonstrations for the kids as a way of entertainment. But I just saw that there's so much more that we could do. And their Christmas existed really, basically, it was the fire department handing out basketballs or Barbie dolls. That was it. So I said, we can do better. First of all, just as we're seeing in today's society, there's genders, people are crossing genders, and some boys would rather play with a Barbie doll, some girls would rather have a basketball. So
Yeah.
why can't we just give these kids something that they want? And so
Right.
that's what we do, is we provide a holiday for these kids. It's evolved into putting trees in the houses, into giving them a gift bag full of goodies, that like stocking stuffer kind of things. But I always give them books, that art supplies, things that I feel like that are positive influence. And then they get a gift card to the local mall, and the gift card amount reflects how much I'm able to raise. So every single penny that comes into the program goes to the children. Nothing, we spend nothing on ourselves. I get donations of wrapping paper and bags. So it's really, all the money goes right into the kids. Yeah, so thanks so much for spreading that word. I'll definitely make sure that you have all the information you need to share that out there. Thanks, guys.
Please. And you guys,
yeah.
like I said, down here in the description, I've always had a lot of love and respect for Patricia because of the acting. But the more I've gotten to read about her and the more I've gotten to discuss, I love her as a human being because of the kindness and the generosity that she puts out. As all of you know, I have an 8-year-old that's high functioning autism. So anything you can do to help a child, like I said, it may seem like the littlest thing to us, but to this child that doesn't have anything,
that's it.
That little thing is huge. And it shows that there's someone out there that cares about them when they're in this trouble. So like I said, guys, please click this link down here. I know I'll be contributing as well.
Thank
you.
But
to get on a little less heavy note, you do have a book that we could talk about as well.
Oh, yeah. The book is called Pleasure Thresholds. And I know we're talking horror today. It is it stretched across the 5 years I was on a show called Babylon 5. And I do talk about Night of the Living Dead, and I talk about special effects makeup, and I talk about all the things I was doing in between. So it's really kind of a 5-year glimpse into the world of a working actor and stunt person. So you know what I mean? I based it on these stories to start with around the show I was on, but there was so much more going on, and I didn't really even realize it because I was working so hard and moving so fast, and I had an infant son, and I was single mom. So it was this crazy ride I was on, trying to work all that I could. So I'd be working on Babylon 5 acting, and then the next day I'd be on Star Trek Deep Space Nine stunt doubling for Nana Visitor or Terry Farrell, the guest star, or whoever it was. I never turned down a job. Sometimes I'd be working 48 hours in a row, doing a commercial at night or whatever I could get, because you never know, and you never know when your job's going to end. It's just, you never know when the next paycheck is. So you don't ever turn anything down. So as I was started to put this, and I had all my call sheets from over the years. I was looking at the shows I was on. I was like, oh my God, now I kind of get the chance to experience it, because I was working so hard. I didn't have time to take that in. Oh my God, I just worked on, Austin Powers. I was hanging out with Mike Myers. He punched me in the face. That was crazy. This kind of stuff that I hadn't really thought about. So
it soak in.
It was really fun. Yeah, it was really fun to slow down and piece that all together. And you can, we'll provide the link for that as well if you guys are interested by the book. Right now, I'm selling, because of COVID, I'm home, so I'm selling the book out of my home, and so I autograph it. So the book is available autographed. Just wanted to throw that out there right now. Who knows? Because once I start getting on the road again,
that's another one that I can promise you I'll be getting, because I'm very excited. I'm very excited to read it. And like I said, guys, like she just said as well, they're down here in the description. So you don't have to go searching for these things. These are things that we're going to make readily available for you, as well as Patricia's social media links. If you're not following her already, make sure you're clicking the links and giving her a follow. So,
I didn't ask. Can I say swear words? Do you say swear words on this show, or do we not say? Okay, good.
Yes.
Just checking, because they come flying out of my mouth upon occasion. I just want to make sure that. Okay, good.
Yep, that's absolutely fine. Now, one other thing I wanted to ask, we know what you've been doing lately, but is there anything else new that you're working on right now?
Oh my gosh. Sure. Thanks, Ken, because, COVID. And so I was actually, let's see, February 2020, I was in England at a convention, a little convention in Telford, England, and which I love doing. And then I had a plan for Quest Retreats, Adventures for Nerds. I have a Scotland trip that I planned. So I thought my fiance and I were going to go up into Scotland and we're going to scout it all out. So I flew round trip to Pittsburgh. I did a little convention there, came back to London, met Glenn at the airport. We boarded a plane for Edinburgh without hardly stopping to pee. And then I went to Edinburgh, and the lockdown started happening. We're hearing the rumors of it, and restaurants were starting to close. And we're like, well, what do? We're like, we can't do anything. We just keep going. So we picked up our rental car. We started to go through Scotland, and sure enough, everything's locking down. So I ended up for 6 weeks in Scotland because they canceled our flights, trying to figure it out. we could do stuff outside, but we couldn't go into any of the castles. We couldn't, check out the hotels, but
Sure.
we had the country to ourselves. It was amazing. And we drove all over the place because what else is there to do? Drive and hike, drive and hike. I got such great ideas of what we're going to be able to do once we get a handle on this virus. Anyway, so when we did get home finally in April, it was like late April. It was like, what? It was so surreal. Yeah, they said, okay, you've got 2 days to catch your flight. We're, in the Highlands of Scotland, had to drive down to Heathrow. It was crazy. Anyway, I realized I had to do something different. So I pivoted my business from travel to online, I guess you'd say online conventions in a way, but one-on-one. So I would have one guest at a time. I started off with my Babylon 5 family, and then I branched out into my Star Trek family, and invited other people in, and we would have these half a day events where everyone could talk to the guest, and we would, like Armin Shimmerman or Tim Russ or Nana Visitor or Gigi Edgley, and and then of course Claudia Christian and Mira Furlan and Bill Mooney and Peter Jurasik. So we were just having these great conversations every month, just to sort of bond. And I had a party that we kind of did beforehand, just to give everybody a sense of community.
Sure.
That's really important to me. And meanwhile, what I also did was I started a Patreon page to also, because I've got this really strong desire for community. I love conventions for that purpose. That I've got friends that I've made over the years, as we all have at conventions. My first convention back is coming up in September. It's Frightmare in Texas. So we've all been excited, but also nervous because COVID is raging in Texas, and Governor Abbott just came down with it. So he's got COVID as of today. So we're all like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? Anyway, I started really delving into what it is I wanted to be in this world, in life. I know that's a little, but the point is that we have one life, and we get a chance to make something of ourselves. And who do we want to be? How do we want to share ourselves? How do we want to, what do we want to leave behind? How do we want to support each other? It's become so clear we need that. So the Patreon page is a way for me to get started on that. We have a wonderful community going. We have all these activities all month long, and we pick a topic for the month. So that's been fabulous. I ran over the summer. I ran what I called a 42-day program. The 42 days was from Douglas Adams. I'm blanking on it. Douglas Adams. Come on, help me out here. It'll come. It'll happen when I'm not trying to think of it. Anyway, the 42 being the number, which is everything. So 42 days, which turns out to be 6 weeks. I ran this program to help everybody kind of put the magic back in life, was the idea. Let's put the magic back in life. And I have now with the patrons, so I experiment on them. I run my ideas by them. They get to see the first chapters of books. We are powwowing on what it is we want more of. And now I'm going to take that on the road. So the next piece is that I'm going to hit the road as soon as we can. I've got a trip to South Africa, as you so kindly mentioned, for Quest retreats. That's planned. Again, we don't know with COVID, but it's not till the end of 2022. That webpage will go live soon. And then I want to hit the road, and I want to see all of you guys in the cities you're in, and get together and talk, and not just about all the things we love, which is films and, facts and stories. We love that stuff. But what else do you want out of your life, and how can I help? So that's what I'm doing.
That's incredible. It's something I've said a lot, is if we're lucky, we get 100 years here. That is not long enough to be angry, to be sad, to be, do what you can to make yourself happy in those 100 years, because you don't get to do it again. So in those 100 years, find what makes you happy, do what you can to be happy, because you don't know when that light's going to shut off. So the fact that you're doing that to help other people is absolutely fantastic. I couldn't be happier for you.
Thank you. Let's just make it fun, right? Like I said, put the
Mhm.
magic back, get to have awe again, to have connection with each other, and to realize that really everything does kind of support us if we let it support,
Mhm.
helping us along the way. Life is all about moving forward. If you can always be taking little wee steps into some kind of growing and stretching and becoming, you, wow, the universe meets you halfway.
It
Yeah,
really does.
it really
It,
does.
I've always been a big fan of, you get what you give. I try to
Yeah,
be as absolutely positive as I can all the
yeah.
time, and I feel like I get a lot of positivity coming back my way. So
Excellent. You look for
that's
it.
how
I bet you look for it, because that's the kind of person you are. And
I
that's
really
a
do.
really good point, is to where are the good things instead of just
Mhm.
always noticing the bad, because it's really easy. Our brains are designed to look for
Yeah.
the bad. That was how we stayed safe in our cave, when there were saber-toothed tigers. We had, the brain was constantly on high alert, and something is trying to kill us. It
Mhm.
really was. But the problem is right now that doesn't serve us.
Right.
Trying to balance your checkbook and you're having a heart attack because you don't have enough money in the bank. You think you're going to die. No, you just need to make a plan, but it's really hard because you're in fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
So the brain is programmed. It's a great tool, but it's a terrible master. So how do you get that you get that out of your way so you can have fun? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, fun is A, being a father, and
Aw.
B, horror movies. And
Yes.
horror movies is something that to me is so important in my life. It
Sure.
has been since I was a little boy. Ever since I seen House from 1986 for the
Mm,
first time,
mm.
that was my first horror movie, and it still to this day means so much to me, as does this little film right here. This is a film, guys, that means so much to me because it has one of the most badass final girls of all time in it,
Oh,
Barbara. And this is the badass Barbara. Look, I love the 68 of the Dead. Everybody knows that. But
sure,
Barbara in
absolutely.
that movie, halfway through, just completely shuts down. Not this Barbara. And,
Right.
this Barbara right here, she fights to the very end. And that's
Right.
something, before we get into your first horror movie, how is it for you to be, like I said, Night of the Living Dead, whether you're talking about 68 or 90, you're talking about a movie that is so influential in so many different ways.
Mm,
And that's
mm,
something
mm.
that you're a part of, because I've never met one person that had a bad word to say about this film
Right.
ever.
Right.
Because the power that you guys bring to the screen, whether it's you, whether it's Tony, you guys
Wow.
absolutely make this film rewatchable, not just
Oh,
watchable, rewatchable. And I've
I've
always
got
said,
to say that is, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Tom Savini, because he cast the film. And when you read any interview with him, when he's talking about casting, or any of the reflections, like Billy Butler's got a book out and he talks about Night of the Living Dead and the casting of it. Tom had such an instinct about not only the characters, and then when he met the actor, he put that together, but also the chemistry, because that was imperative, wasn't it? I mean, you enjoyed
Oh,
the movie. We all loved each other. We got along so great. And that, it could have been a disaster. It could have been, but
absolutely.
because so I want to credit Savini for that,
Mhm.
for putting that cast together in that way. Magic happened.
And it's funny because when you think of Tom Savini, obviously you think of the great special effects, you think of the great
Sure.
makeup that the guy does, but you're right. I've heard so many good things about his direction when it comes to this movie. And
Right.
he did George Romero a lot of justice. I know that George Romero worked with him a lot on the script and what they did. And I
Yeah.
feel like this was George's way of rectifying some of the things that he feels he didn't do right with the first one. Now, 68, I love it. I really do.
Right.
But
Right.
with this one, like I said, to me, horror has always been ahead of the curve when it comes to social issues. Even when it comes to 1968, you had a black man saving a
Right.
blonde woman.
Right.
You've always had these social commentaries in these films.
Mhm.
And one of the things that horror did first, before anything, was your final girl. You had these girls that were out there kicking guys' asses, lasting to the end and taking down the bad guy. And that's you. And in this movie, the bad guy you take down isn't so much a zombie, but just a fucking bastard that has been making your life hell. inside. So you have the exterior monsters and this
Right.
interior monster. And to
Right.
watch you put a bullet in that guy's head. Okay, spoiler alert, if you guys haven't seen it yet, give me a break. But
That's
to
on
see
you. Yeah.
that evolution of you, because you are rather timid at the beginning, with you and Johnny, and they're coming to get you, Barbara. But
Right.
rather than shutting down, you fight back. You become the Ash thing, Ash from Evil Dead. He's a,
Right.
kind of a weak guy at Evil Dead. But when push comes to shove, he pushes back. And that's what Barbara does. She pushes back.
It's the fight, flight, or freeze, the original Barbara, and appropriately so. That was the trope back in the 60s, is she froze and gave up. And what my amygdala, my brain, for Barbara, kicked me into fight. And I also think there's so many levels of things that were going on there. We all talked about it at the time too. Is just the kind of the male female stereotype, the male energy, being in control, making the decisions, the women having to, will you please ask for directions? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Why are we driving around not asking directions? Come on. So the Barbara's just like, they're so slow. We could walk right by. We could. We have a choice here, kids, but it's like no one's listening to her. Yeah. So I love it as a metaphor for all of us who feel like we are the average person. We are a normal average person. And when shit hits the fan, we are going to rise to the circumstance.
Yeah.
And it might, it might not be pretty. It might be a big old mess, but we're going to do our best to not freeze and freak out, but to actually figure it out, and I think we all want to feel like that's how we would go. We would figure it out. But if anything can happen, and other people, like you're saying, you could get stuck in the house with an asshole, and so then you're like.
And everybody's like, oh, if the zombie apocalypse happened, I'm like, bro, when I see a spider, I want to move out. You think I'm going to be okay if 1,000 zombies are running at me? Well, I got to be realistic here.
Exactly. Honestly,
my kids are younger. They taste better. Take them.
How would we know, really? Because I think there would be at least a moment of freeze where your brain refuses to accept what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't. I don't know. I can imagine how I would like to,
right?
But who knows?
Well, before Patricia, we get into your first horror movie, I do want to talk. I ask one more question for you.
Sure.
About Night of the Living Dead. When you guys, like I said, you guys were filming it. You guys were all friends. You guys were all close on set. Did you guys know that this movie, being a remake, did you know that it would be as influential and as important as it is in the horror community now? Like, did you know that you guys were doing something special there?
No. I think we were all hoping it wouldn't suck and that we would be, I know a couple, like Billy was he was big horror fan. So he was very cognizant of the significance of doing a remake, but he'd also done some other remakes of other films. So I don't think we were preoccupied with that at all. We just wanted to do a really good job, and we wanted to make it fresh from our perspective.
Mission accomplished.
I think I did see. I saw Night of the Living Dead. I went to school in Pittsburgh, and the first time I saw, I have only seen it once. The original was like my junior year, and my friends made me go see it at a midnight showing. And I don't like horror movies; they scare me. I know but I went and was amazed at how effective it was, considering how low budget it had been. And I thought it was brilliant. And when I heard George was remaking it, I didn't understand why until they explained it. But I do remember talking about it. And we our dressing room was in the barn on the property that we were shooting night on. And we talked about it a little bit. It just never... It didn't occupy my mind for sure. And I already knew that Savini was doing, it was going to be so different in a lot of ways.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love about it. Because I've always said, I don't think that remakes are inherently bad. I'm one of the people that I have an open mind on a lot of different things. And
Sure.
one thing I don't want to see when I go into a remake is something that's done scene by scene. You know,
Sure.
if you're going to remake something, I want you to take it and I want you to make it your own. I want to see a fresh take on an old classic. That's what I
That's it.
want.
I
And
agree.
that's what this was. You know, this was
Yeah.
a very fresh take on an old classic, and they did
Right.
it so much justice. And I think
Yeah.
having George and Tom is a big part of that because
Yeah.
George, it was his original vision. Tom is a student of the game,
Right.
obviously. The guy knows
Yeah.
his horror. So, you know, having them and then having the cast that you guys had with you and Tony and everybody that was a part of that, it's such an amazing movie. And I'm so honored to be able to talk to you about how horror started for you. So we'll get into that. We know what you got going on in the future where you're going to be doing quest retreats again, hopefully,
Yeah.
and you know, working on Penny Lane in the book, which I'm so excited to read. But I want to go back to the past now, Patricia, and I want to talk about
Okay.
how horror started for you, your first horror movie, and the first horror movie that you watched was
The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock. So I was just a youngster, and back in my neighborhood, I was one of the babysitters. You know, I was one of the oldest of the kids, and of all the the houses of my neighborhood. So I would end up like the parents would go out, and I'd end up with 2 or 3 families worth of kids to manage for the evening, and I would finally get things settled down or whatever, and I would end up watching something on TV that my parents never in a million years would have let me watch. Right. And we had to watch in those days, kids, you know, it was one TV with maybe 3 channels, and you watched what was on when it was on, and that you had no choice. So
you couldn't
we had
record, you couldn't rewind TV.
no, that's right. That's exactly right. And we had, it was at Svengoolie in Chicago. So Svengoolie was our horror host, you know, the awesome horror hosts back in the day. And I didn't think it sounded all that scary, The Birds. Oh, good. Well, how bad can that be? You know, kind of thing. And, you know, it's not too long until you get into the shower scene and just, wait a minute. I thought we were going to follow her. First of all, it was horrific.
Yeah.
And then I thought we were going to follow her for the whole movie, and she's dead. It's anyway, it got it. No, that's Psycho. So the Birds. I'm sorry. See, this is all Svengoolie. That was Psycho. Maybe Psycho was no, it was The Birds. It was Tippi Hedren. I was so impressed with how beautiful she was. That's right.
She is very
oh my
beautiful.
God. So the whole Hitchcock thing started to become very apparent to me that he was an evil genius.
Yeah.
Right. Oh God. All by myself with these sleeping kids, and I'm watching this movie. I was so dumb.
What people don't realize is, like you said, I think a lot of people haven't seen The Birds because they hear, oh, The Birds, how scary can that be? But one thing about this movie that is so special that I think when you go back and watch this movie, they used birds in the film, but they also did a yellow screen so they could do some special effects in the after, you know, the old CGI type stuff, but it still looks good. And there's a lot of very effective scenes in this, whether it's the schoolyard or a lot of stuff in this movie that's very effective. But what scene would you say affected you the most from The Birds?
There was that scene when they were, the birds are starting to peck through the house and the doors. So here's the thing that I think the other scary movie I loved was The Haunting of Hill House. And part of that was because there's no monster that you can see ever. There's no monster. It's all implied. And if you haven't seen the black and white version, guys, I think please go do it. It's amazing with Julie Harris. Anyway, that with The Birds, it's the same thing. There's no monster. There's nothing that looks like a monster. It's just something that's natural around you all the time. What could possibly be more frightening than that? Right. That these are just regular birds, seagulls and crows and sparrows, and all of a sudden they turn into some kind of a monster all together. The other thing was the explosion at the gas station, right? Oh my God. Kind of watching society fall apart.
Yes.
Watching society fall apart. Her friend with her eyes pecked out, you know, those kinds of scenes.
And that's what I was going to talk to you about, because we all, the deaths in movies is
Oh my
something that affects
God.
us. Is that the one you think got you when you see the eyes that are pecked out?
Oh, for sure. I'd never seen anything like that. Right. I mean,
Mhm.
oh my God. Yeah, for sure. And just the idea of it. See, it's our heads. When you have a movie like that, or like there's not an obvious monster, your head
Mhm.
is doing all these trippy things. Her walking the girl home from school, trying to get her home, that whole sequence of events that happens. Uh, yeah. And you
And
just watch the birds starting to land on the playground, and your skin starts to crawl. It's just like, what's gonna happen?
yes, and I love the back and forth between her and the male lead, like how she buys him the bird, and
I
they
love
have almost a
birds.
comedic energy with each other. I think it's a lot of fun to watch those two
Oh
go back and forth with each other.
yeah. That's I love. Okay, I have to go back and watch it again now. Yeah, I thought all the acting was actually very good.
Hmm. Oh, and
Hitchcock is known for how he manipulated his actors, right? He would
yeah,
just say, "Look here, now look here, now look over there," and then he would fill in the action, and they didn't even know what they were looking at,
right.
which
And
I
that's
thought was really interesting.
it's so smart. Hitchcock, the way that he made films was so intelligent, because Hitchcock at the time cared about a twist. He cared, but also about a good story, about
Hmm.
good effects, about good cinematography. Like, he was all
Hmm.
about his cinematography. So,
The
as a
lighting
horror
is
director,
amazing.
he still
Oh,
wanted things to look beautiful in that horror way, and he did.
yeah, he did
Hitchcock
it.
made such beautiful films.
He did.
So, Patricia, I'm going to go with a little curveball here on you for a
Okay.
second. We talked about The Birds, which is your first horror movie, but now I'm going to go scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary
Uh,
movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
I think the one that got me the most upset. Well, I like I said, I love The Haunting of Hill House. I love that. I kind of rewatch it every Halloween. I love that movie. Um, would be The Exorcist.
Yeah.
The Exorcist was so bloody disturbing. Uh, and then obviously it had the horror element to it, but that again, it just makes you feel like you're not safe. There's nowhere to go because
I've talked about this a lot on the podcast. And for any
yeah.
repeat viewers, I'm sorry if you got to hear me repeat myself, but The Exorcist is one of the only movies that scared me to death as a kid, and then scared me to death as a father of young ladies, for two completely different reasons. As a
Oh,
kid, I'm scared of, oh, what if that was me? What if that was happening
right,
to me? Even
right.
though it was a young lady. Because I didn't understand, like, the crucifix part. Like, I didn't get
Yeah,
that. I thought she was just, I'm a little boy. I didn't get it.
right.
And
Good.
as
I'm
a
glad
kid,
you
you're
didn't get
kind of like, yeah, exactly. As a kid, you're kind of just like, fuck that kid, get out of there, it's the devil. But then you become a parent, and you have your own kids, and
right.
then you get scared for a whole different reason. You're watching this
Sure.
movie like, what if that's my daughter in this situation? What do I
Right.
do when I feel this helpless? And again, a scene I've talked about from that film, that I'm sorry for repeat viewers, but you know how much it affects me. When on Reagan's stomach, you can see that she carved "Help Me" on
Right.
her stomach. So you know that that beautiful, innocent young lady is still in there. It's not just Pazuzu, the demon. She's in there, and you know you can still save her because she's begging for help. And again, I put myself in films when I watch them, and as a father, I put myself in there as, take me. Yeah, I'll
Yeah. It's
whatever
oh
you got to
please.
do.
Oh
Like,
yes. I
don't
know.
hurt her, please. And it's The Exorcist to me. I think it's not my favorite, but I think it is the scariest horror film ever made, and I don't think that we'll ever get another reaction like The Exorcist got when it premiered. You had people screaming and leaving the theaters. Churches were becoming overcrowded because of the impact that The Exorcist was having, and I don't think we'll ever
Amazing.
have an instance like that in horror again.
I don't know. I don't know how you would do it. I agree with you. It's to me, I think it's the most scary, but it's not my favorite. Yeah,
Mhm.
I would. There's movies I rewatch, like I said, but I would never rewatch that on purpose. I
It's
would
funny
never.
because my mother and father, they were young when they had me, and we watched horror movies all the time together. That's the only movie that my mother shut off and said, "We're not watching this. You're
Oh, good
not
for
going to watch
her.
it. It's too much."
Good for
And
her.
so it always had this stigma to me, like, oh man. So I finally snuck off and watched it. I was like, man, my mom's not right. I can
Right.
watch this. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Then I watched it. I was like, man, my mom was right. I shouldn't have watched that. I'm not fine. Like, I was like,
I
she was
slept with
right.
my
It scared the
parents. I
shit out
went
of
and
me.
got in bed with my parents that night. I slept
Yeah.
between them. I was so fucking terrified. Yeah. I had nightmares. Yeah, no, it's bad. That was bad.
Yeah, it
There's
really
movies that
is.
I love, a lot of the classics. I love black and whites. I love the old monster movies, the old Frankenstein and the Mummy and the Bela Lugosi. Exactly. How
Yeah.
can you not love those movies?
Well, I mean, to me,
So,
I'm also a big believer in everything goes in cycles. These were the original big horror franchises. And then, horror kind of dipped for a little bit.
uh,
And then it came back, and you had your Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Jason
big time.
Voorhees, Child's Play, Chucky. Like, you have these, hills and valleys and then cycle repeats itself. And
Mhm.
these were the big monsters that influenced the big monsters for me when I was a kid. And the big monsters for me when I was a kid, whether it be the Jason, Freddy, Michael, they influence what you get today with the Ball and Sinister, Conjuring. You had these monsters
Yeah.
get influenced, like the Nun. So the hills and valleys and the cycle repeating itself. It's so amazing to go,
It's
and
so amazing.
for us, it would not have happened had it not been for these guys right
I
here. This is what
know. Isn't
started
that
it.
amazing? I think that human nature, again, with little brain fun facts, our brain loves to get scared too. It's cathartic, and it gives you, that's a great thing about a horror movie is there's a beginning, middle, and an end. Hopefully, and if it doesn't give you an end, that's when you get fucked up. But you need that, you need that cycle, and it's a fun ride to go on. It gives you a dopamine rush, which we
Yeah.
love. I was going to ask you then, talking about cycles, this zombies are not my favorite thing. Because I think they're gross. I mean, I like vampires. I like ghosts. I like monsters. Those are, kind of intriguing. But the whole zombie thing that it's gotten so popular, I just don't quite get it. So tell me about that. Tell me what you think. Are we going to continue with zombies much longer? Can we
I
please
think
get
that the
out of
zombie
this?
craze is already going down.
Yes,
I
hope
think
so.
that again, we're talking about cycles. The Walking Dead came and it hit like a ton of bricks, and that
Did.
brought it back. But now, if you notice, I think that what's going to be the next thing, I think honestly, is going to be witches. I think witches are going to come back because you just had witches.
Interesting.
And then Fear Street on Netflix, that just took off huge, and that's full of witches. And they got a couple different witch movies that are in production right now. Hocus Pocus
Oh,
2 is coming out next year. So I think
okay.
that, witches is going to be kind of your next big thing. And slashers,
Interesting.
obviously, are coming back. You got Scream coming out next year. You got
Oh,
Halloween Kills coming out this year. So, I mean, again, it goes in cycles. You'll have
right.
years where, your psychological movies like your Exorcist, Conjuring, Insidious, Sinister, those movies rule the box office. Then people get a little burned out on that. And then you get that one slasher that comes back where Halloween came back.
Yeah.
And here come all the slashers coming back again. So it just like that, slashers will be big for a couple years. And then bam, we'll go back to maybe werewolves, please.
Right.
Hint, Hollywood, hint, werewolves.
Hint, please. Do you like What We Do in the Shadows?
Oh, yeah.
Did you see the film, or have you just watched the series?
Just the series.
Just the series. You got to see the film. I stumbled across it on Netflix or something at the time. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. And I was like, and Taika Waititi starts coming out of this coffin, and he's like the sweetest little vampire face. And I'm like, what the fuck is this show? This is hilarious. And it's, faux documentary.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't expecting it at all. I loved it. And the whole thing with the werewolves, that when they meet up with the werewolves, we're werewolves, not swearwolves. I mean, it was so funny. And then the series, and I just hope, I love that we have, and it's scary too. I mean, they're ripping heads off and doing vampire things, but I kind of love that when there's a sense of humor to it too. That's really
horror
special.
comedies to me are like I said, House,
so fun.
Evil Dead 2, and honestly,
Evil Dead 3, Bruce was hilarious.
Well, you guys were all great in that movie. I mean, look, even you, because you were the witch in the past and the present. If I'm
no, I was just the witch at the cauldron. Okay. I know people mistake. I don't know where that started, but no, I'm only the witch at the cauldron.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad I asked that.
And I'm in the army. I am in the army. They built the KMBFX built the army on my body. I was just thinking about this because I was posting a photo of me as the witch on my Instagram, and I was recalling that those were really lean, hard times. And my friends, Greg Howard and Bob, they said, "Well, come on in. We've got some stuff. We could pay you a SAG day rate. We've got to cast a body." And in those days, I was really skinny, and we're going to make puppets of these of the army of the dead. And I
Yeah.
had no idea what that meant, but I'm like, I'm in. If you can pay me a day rate, I'm in. So yeah, basically they put me in a leotard, and I was like the flayed man from Game of Thrones, out on this, laid there in this wooden frame while they foamed me up with stuff.
That's
And then
awesome.
they got me the audition for Rob Tapert for The Witch, which was very sweet. And so we made that makeup, but then we used that makeup, and what else did we use it in? We did a stupid movie, and at the time it was called The Nutty Nut. I'm not sure what it's called now. I don't think it was released under that name, but they just said, "Hey, Patty, we've got this cheapo movie. It's going to be SAG low budget, but it's some money, and we'll use the same makeup, but we won't make you a witch. We'll make you this old lady." And then the guy from the original Mission Impossible, the big strong man from the original Mission Impossible, he's going to beat you up. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, like, we're going to throw you down some stairs. Cool. So we did that. And while we were doing that movie, we shot our own handheld movie because we were bored. And they had a dummy of me. So then they had me pissing off this driver, and I'm flipping him off. I'm the cranky old lady and flipping him the bird. And then he hits me with a car, and then he rolls back and forth over my body, which was the dummy. But we made that the most out of that makeup. We did that.
That's so incredible.
Oh, it was hilarious. These guys were nonstop. It was so fun,
man. And it's
so
awesome
fun
to hear these stories. Like for me, it's like, I'm a huge behind the scenes guy anyway. So to hear you talk about some of these things for me is just so incredible to hear how well traveled these things can become.
That's wild. Yeah, that's wild. I was so grateful to them, though, because they really kind of took me under their wing for a little while. I was starving, and they said, "No, we can help you. We can get you some work." So, oh, thank you.
Run it.
Running. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, Patricia, I've had such a blast with you, but we always end this podcast with the same question.
Okay.
We're going to go back to the birds. And what we're going to do is we're going to rank this on a skull count, 0 skulls being the worst and 5 being the best. Now, here's the catch. We're not ranking this on production, score, cinematography, acting, nothing like that. We're not being critics. What we're doing here is just ranking this movie on what this movie means to you and how much this movie affected you on your first viewing. So 0 being the worst and 5 skulls being the best. And Patricia, you can use half and quarter skulls. What would your ranking of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds be?
I would give it a 5, no question, because
Be.
it really terrified me. It was so well done and seamless, and just it set me off on a path to want to see more. That's when this Psycho came, and all the other ones. I was like, yes, let's go.
I don't condone drug use. I want to make that very clear right off the rip. I don't condone it, but horror movies is like doing drugs. Like you get that first high, and then you're constantly chasing that dragon.
That's
And this is so. If you want to sit down and get high with some horror movies, I'm your guy. But that's what I liken it to. Like you said, you get that rush in your brain,
you get
and you constantly are looking for that again. It's that roller coaster ride that you're always looking for. So this, like I said, Patricia, this has been so amazing, and I'm so overwhelmed by the fact that I even got to spend a little bit of time with you.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
I want to remind everybody, click the links down here in the description if you haven't already. At the very least, if you can't give, because we understand COVID has happened, times are tough. At least follow Patricia on social media so you can follow along with her adventures as she goes along in this crazy world. Like I said, we got maybe 100 years. Let's make as many friends and love as much as we possibly can. Patricia, don't go anywhere, please. I got a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Everybody else, as always, I'm Ken Sledge. Oh, no, anytime. Guys, keep talking horror. Stay what you are. And I'll see you guys soon.